Hello, everybody out in the world. Welcome to this Talk to the Entities Roundtable Focus. This month, January 2026, is Beings of Light. If you are just tuning in to me and this thing called Talk to the Entities for the first time, welcome. And if you are not new, and you have been following along for the last year-long Talk to the Entities specialty focus. This one is a little bit out of the box. And just for those of you guys that are interested in more entity consciousness, more entity empowerment and awareness, please note that there are many other free resources. We have been doing many Talk to Entities specialty roundtables throughout the year and podcasts. You can find these on the Talk to the Entities YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram accounts. And the podcasts are on the Consciousness Anywhere podcast, which can be also found on YouTube or the Shannon O'Hara website or any podcast platform that you listen to. So if you're just tuning in, there's so much more that preceded this, and today's deep dive is on Beings of Light, which is the title of the second Talk to the Entities book that I authored. We have progressed we've progressed with the specialties. Now, what do I mean specialties? Talk to the Entities is a educational empowerment, access consciousness, specialized class designed to make spirit awareness so much easier and even profoundly fun and life enhancing. The specialties are a deep dive into the different areas that entities show up that most people might not expect, but once you learn about it, you really get the efficacy of the application of entity consciousness in different areas, like haunted houses. I feel like that one's pretty obvious. Money and entities, relationship with entities, communication, like how do you communicate with entities? So the specialty classes are deep dives into these niches within the broader Talk to the Entities core curriculum. And the reason I'm on this roundtable by myself is because I am the only Talk to the Entities facilitator who facilitates Beings of Light. And I wanted to be here with you guys and all of the conscious beings for this willingness into a more relaxed receiving space. So the specialties that we have focused on and spotlighted over the last 12 months or 11 months, it started in February 2025, increasing complexity or difficulty in that the Beings of Light topic requires a huge amount of receiving. Now, what does receiving have to do with consciousness and what does it have to do with entities? When you start talking about awareness of any kind, you're entering into a non-logical, non-mental process or possibility that can't be analyzed or you can't apply the same filters of the mind to without suppressing it, repressing it, distorting it, controlling it. Awareness is a free possibility for all of us. And when I say awareness, what does that mean? It means, what if you are an infinite being? And if you were an infinite being, would there be anything, any information, any knowing, any possibility, any energy that you would not have access to? Now, I know this is a broad claim, and either that's going to excite some of you or terrify others of you, or a combination of the both called X-terrify you. But since Talk to the Entities is a specialty class of access consciousness, and access consciousness comes from the premise of empowering people to know that they know. and that you are an infinite being with infinite awareness. If that is so, are there areas of your life where you're pretending not to be an infinite being? And if you are an infinite being, then why is stuff like money or being happy or, I mean, you name it, why are those not easy, or why do those feel challenging? I assert that it is due to the unwillingness or the lie that we buy that we're limited, that we're not an infinite being, that we in fact are not aware or have a limitation, or we cannot choose in a certain way. And when we buy the lie that we're limited, we lose receiving. Receiving is a really cool energy flow that couples with gifting. So you can either live in a universe of gifting and receiving, which is essentially what nature lives in. Nature is an ecosystem, an economy, an energy flow of infinite gifting and receiving. For example, the sun gifts of its infinite energy, and the earth receives and gifts back, or is a gift that produces oxygen, fruit, shade, vegetation, minerals, etc., etc., etc. Now, how do I know that the sun is gifting free infinite energy? Because the sun does not send the earth an invoice for energy given. So you can, believe it or not, actually choose to function from a universe of gifting and receiving, which does require making some different choices than are normal. Or you can live in the universe of transactional realities. I gave you this, now what are you going to give me in return? Etc., etc., etc. Gifting and receiving is natural, it's easy, it's free, and it doesn't require anything of you other than that you be a gift that receives. The universe of transaction is full of laws, rules of why you can't, what isn't, and limitations denoting what appropriate energies to receive or gift are and what inappropriate energies to receive and gift are, etc., etc., etc. So when we choose the universe that we're going to function from, which I assert we all choose if we're going to function from the universe of gifting and receiving or function from the universe of transactional realities. And most of us make this choice pretty early on before we have developed adult minds. We are educated, taught, and duplicate the households, the environment, the society, the families that we grow up in. And if our parents were very transactional, that seems appropriate and correct to us. If our parents were really into gifting and receiving, then that seems appropriate to us. And now I presume that the majority of you listening to this out there right now are adults. So by the time you get to this point of life, you have already solidified, chosen, concluded huge parameters of what we could call reality. Are those impermeable? Are they changeable? Are they fixed? Or are they choice you made at some point that you could choose again about if you so desired? Enter the beings of light. I was facilitating Talk to the Entities for quite some years. I started putting together the body of work of Talk to the Entities in my early 20s. I am 46 years old as of now. So I have been at this for 25-ish years. And I was building steam, getting the ideas, the concepts, the tools of talk to the entities were building year by year. And I was facilitating what I was calling at the time beginning classes, which was about number one, clearing issues around entity awareness, which, by the way, 25 years ago, 20 years ago, people were so much more resistant to acknowledging that they were aware of entities than today. Now, when I do a beginning class, now when I deal with people around entities, even those of you out there listening or who will listen to this, there is so much more willingness to be like, yeah, I'm aware of entities. It isn't this big terrifying resistance that people used to bring to the topic. So a lot of talk to the entities in the beginning was using the access clearing tools to get people out of reaction to the fact that they were even aware of entities and what being aware of entities meant about them, or, all the fear, the control, the I'm wrong if I'm aware of entities, which I know that there's still fear, control, and I'm wrong if I'm aware of entities, but take my word for it, the universe has changed. Now, why is that? Because talk to the entities and access consciousness has been effectively chosen and applied by thousands of people who have chosen more consciousness in this area, and that has had a real change on the mass consciousness. So I was facilitating what I was calling beginning classes for quite some years, teaching and empowering people to get out of their reaction to entity awareness, and then teaching them the tools of clearing entities and communicating with entities, which, if you're interested in the clearing and the communicating, go back and watch the beginning of the specialty roundtable focuses on YouTube or Facebook, and you can hear way more about the nuts and bolts of those topics. But eventually, I started getting to this new possibility that I really wasn't conscious or cognitive that I was heading towards while I was choosing more consciousness with the spirit world. And that new possibility was receiving. I hadn't really gotten that there was this whole other aspect of spirit work that necessitated or was about receiving from benevolent beings. Now, I know that sounds naive, because if you think about it now, like, there's so much legend and mythology about angels and guardian spirits and all sorts of sort of terminology that many of us have in our cultures about benevolent spirits. But a lot of the beginning of entity work for me as a young adult was about getting out of the negativity around entities, getting away from the negativity around demon awareness, the darkness that existed around the entities around drug use, et cetera, et cetera. However, when I was a child, there was a lot more light, benevolent spirits around. But I had lost touch with that as an adult due to growing up in a drug-addicted family in the world without a lot of joy. Fast forward to me saying, I will be more conscious around entities. There was this energy that started showing up that I didn't expect and I wasn't prepared for. And literally, I remember the day I was facilitating a beginning talk to the entities class. I was sitting on the bed I was living in Sweden at the time, and I finished the class, and there was this explosion of awareness and energy that happened for me. And there were these energies right there, standing by the bed, that really freaked me out. I couldn't work out what kind of entities they were. They wouldn't clear. I couldn't really work out how to communicate with them. It was like pressing a lot of my buttons because it was uncontrollable, and it was a new level of receiving. And I finally, after days of being in the question about these entities, finally realized what was occurring was beings of light were showing up in my life. And as soon as I acknowledged that that's what these beings were, the receiving just started expanding in blissful and excruciating waves. Why blissful and excruciating? Receiving is a great increase of energy flow. And when we limit receiving, it compresses our being in ways that most of us don't get. Sort of like you've been sitting cross-legged all your life, and then you stand up and the blood starts flowing and your leg has been so numb. And when the sensation starts to come back into your biology, it's intense. And this is what occurs when some of us have been more controlling than receiving, and we alter into a more receiving flow. And I tell this story in the Beings of Light book. I really reference that as a good read for those of you guys that are interested in this energy, in this topic, in this conversation. It is a small but very mighty and magical book. It's also in, I think, 6 languages that I do not know off the top of my head. I apologize, but they will all be linked below wherever you're watching this, whenever you're watching this. There's also an audiobook version that is read by yours truly, which you can get on any of the audiobook platforms that you use. So if there are big benevolent spirits, conscious beings in the world with us, how does that change the way we view life? How many of you out there feel or think you're alone? How many of you guys have made yourself so wrong for cooperating with and being aware of friends, quote unquote, that other people couldn't see or that other people pretended didn't exist? And if I told you that there are more spirits of all varieties in the world than there are people with bodies, would you believe me? And if there are more spirits of all varieties, why don't you see them? Or do you perceive them, and have you acknowledged it? And if you acknowledged it, then what? And this is where you go on a very different track of normal society. And I presume if you're listening to this, if you're reaching for this conversation, you're already not on the track of normal society. So welcome. Let's take a leap into greater receiving. Now, what's also required in receiving more from benevolent beings or beings of light, beings of consciousness, is that we have to simultaneously be a gift to be able to receive. And herein lies the biggest headfuck of our existence, is the deep underlying point of view or judgment that we have about what we be. How many of you actually judge yourself as being wrong or a burden or ugly or not worth it? And when those judgments dominate over the contribution that you are, the gift that you can be, this is where we begin to lose receiving. And this isn't really meant to be a painful conversation, but if we're really gonna go there, if we're really going to talk about the beings of light, it would be remiss of me to ignore the fundamental under reality that we build a lot of what we think we're experiencing on top. So, when you were a child, did you come to heal or love or take care of one or both of your parents? Was that received? How many of you guys have been trying to make one or both of your parents happy or healthy? And are they choosing it? Now, I'm using the parent example because for many of us, where we stop knowing that we're a gift or we lose that we are a gift is right in the beginning when we come to heal or take care of somebody that does not receive it. And then instead of recognizing that they don't receive, we think we're wrong. We must not be effective. The gift that we came to offer and the gift that we be must be defective. And is that really true? Or have you never been received? Who or what do you require to receive you or to see you for you to know that you're a gift? And so that being a gift, that knowing that you are a contribution in whatever measure you can have that, because you could still be wrong and still know you're a gift. I have experienced this myself personally most of my life. It is an interesting recipe of having self-judgments and simultaneously acknowledging that I be a gift and that there is a contribution that's of value that I be. So if you have, and the reason I'm saying that is because it's not one or the other. This is not black and white. There is no right and righteous, one true path. There is infinite, meandering, different possibilities for each of us. But the key to receiving is the being that you must value in you. And when you be a gift, this then gives you a passport to a very magical universe where everything cooperates with you and you cooperate because you are in the universe of gifting and receiving, which is not something that you can control because it's so much bigger than what can be controlled. And it's full of magnanimous, benevolent energies of consciousness and beings of consciousness. These beings are recorded in history. There is a lot about them in the Bible. However, when I say the Bible, I'm not really sure what version I'm referring to because we all know the Bible was heavily edited after it was written by the original Hebrew mystics. But many of our ancestors worked with and knew beings of light, not from a creepy, culty, religious place, but because it exists. Fast forward to today, we live in a very different world than our ancestors. We are in the age of technology. We are in the heady universe where you are impelled to think, to look outside of you, to look at a screen. Where is the room for deep faith, deep connection with benevolent spirits, and the exploration of softer, less mental endeavors? Welcome to the possibility, a playground full of benevolent spirits that will contribute if you receive, that will grow in their power if you cooperate with them. And for those of you guys that are spirit interested or spirit sensitive or spirit capable, this is a huge missing key for many of us who have aptitudes with spirits. Yes, there are people who have aptitudes with spirits. Is entity awareness a universal phenomenon? I believe so, yes. But just like the movie X-Men, we all have different sort of unique abilities and talents. And how much craving and yearning do you have to create, to receive, to cooperate with the spirit world? Not in like a creepy, out of control way, but in a peaceful, productive, inclusive way. I say often that the byline or the corporate manifesto of Talk to the Entities is the inclusion of all beings and the judgment of none. For we live in a world of people who are constantly looking at how they can exclude what isn't normal or what they can't control. And is that the world you want to live in? Or would you like to live in a energetically diverse, rich, and prosperous society of consciousness? How do you get there? You be the gift that receives. Okay, my beautiful friends, please check out the Beings of Light book. There is quite a fun universe to gain access to through it. I'm facilitating a Beings of Light class starting, it's either the end of this month, the beginning of next, but it's an advanced Talk to the Entities class. It's actually after the advanced Talk to the Entities class. So this is a class that if you are new to Talk to the Entities, might be something that you look at targeting in the future after you have fulfilled the prerequisites of the other Talk to the Entities core classes, which are full of value and empowerment. I look forward to playing with each and every one of you who has the courage to receive more, to be different, and who is willing, even if it's uncomfortable, to be gifted and to be gifted to. Love you guys. See you out there. Ciao.